Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's conversation. My name is Amy Beaulieu. I'm the owner of Three Shoes Incorporated, and this is a leadership and development company that I own for the last few years. My belief is that we wear three shoes at different times in our lives. We wear the big shoes, those shoes we've got to fill. We've got the small shoes that we know we've outgrown, but we're too scared to step out of them. And as your coach and as your trainer, I want to get you into the third pair of shoes. And those are the pair of shoes that make you feel like $1,000,000. I'm honored to be with Marilyn McSweeney of the McSweeney Group today. And we're going to be discussing the topic of pivoting for your career advantage. In this phase that we're in right now, we have, an unprecedented unemployment rate. And with people looking to develop themselves at this time, Marilyn and I wanted to have this conversation with you about ideas of how to pivot and use this time to your best advantage. So without further ado, Marilyn, please introduce yourself to the crowd.
Hi, Amy. Thanks so much for inviting me to do this. Hopefully this will be worthwhile to the viewers. As far as my background, real quick, I come from the commercial interior design and office furnishings industry and transitioned into starting a recruiting firm. We do executive recruiting for over 20 years now, and our purpose is to help match the right positions with the right people and hopefully have a lifelong career in that role.
Terrific. Well, let's dive into this conversation. And I am so curious what your thoughts are about this extreme unemployment we're facing. What do you think is one thing, or maybe the one thing, that people can do to show up even better when we get on the other side of this phase?
Well, I think when we do get on the other side of this phase, one of the questions that's going to be asked in interviews is, what did you do during this time?
Yeah.
And I think if everyone that has extra time can focus on self-improvement and, working with people like you to, as you said, show up as their best self, that is really going to help your career in the future. I think it's important that you understand your why. And for anyone who's a Simon Sinek follower, I mean, as he says, he just put it down. He didn't invent the concept, but understanding your why. Why do you do what you do? What is your purpose? What are your values? What are your beliefs? And if you can take some of this time, as I say, kind of going to the beach and evaluating and knowing what your why is, it will help you to land in the right place after this is over. So if you need more information on discovering your why, again, Simon Sinek has a lot of YouTube videos and so forth to help you with this. So evaluate your values, your beliefs, what gets you up in the morning, what your passion is, and be able to articulate that.
Yeah. So if I'm hearing you right, it's about taking this time, knowing, I hate to say it, but the clock has sort of stopped universally. And you're saying take advantage of that extra time when work isn't surging and your plate isn't as full, perhaps, to reflect, find out what is your why, find out what drives you, what lights you up for a passion, what your interests are. So it sounds like using this time for reflection to be able to know yourself better and then present yourself better.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What about if you're a candidate? Because I'm noticing this with a lot of my coaching clients that they're interested in actually shifting careers. So meaning they've been doing this for 18 years and out of the blue, unexpectedly, they are one of the people let go from the company. Although one of the people I'm thinking of, she was furloughed, so there is a chance she could be brought back. But nonetheless, she's actually thinking this is her gift, so to speak, to push her toward a new career that she's never had experience. After 18 years in the same company, in essence, she's grown up in that company. I'm curious what you think about the idea of switching career paths completely, and what are some best practices to get into a new industry?
Yeah, sure. I think a lot of people are going to be forced to look at different careers
Okay.
because coming out of this, a lot of things are going to look different. And what you had before may not exist or may not exist in the way that you knew it. The other thing that might happen is you take this time for self-reflection and self-improvement. You may decide that you don't want to go back to that. You've discovered
Yeah.
your why and you want something different. So I honestly believe that this is going to be a blessing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So as you look at transitioning careers, make sure that you know what your transferable skills are
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that that matches with where you think you want to go. So one of the ways, if you off the top of your head can't really think or articulate what those transferable skills are, there are some tools to help you with that. Having a coach like Amy, of course, is one thing that you can do. But a lot of you might be familiar with StrengthsFinder 2.0. And this is a quick assessment that you go through and answer questions, and it will come back with your top 5 strengths. And I often see people putting those strengths even on their resume.
Yes.
Just because universally, I think the business world knows about StrengthsFinder and they know what those words mean. So, in that self-evaluation, know what your strengths are and be able to articulate the transferable skills that would apply to that job. Maybe you still want to stay in sales because you're an achiever, you're a driver, you love the thrill of landing the sale, but you're going to be selling something completely different.
Sure.
Well, that company, their first choice is typically going to be someone that already knows the product.
Yeah.
But if you can articulate those skills of being a driver, passionate, positive attitude, quick learner, they will often hire from.
Yeah, savvy about the technology that's used. Right. These are transferable and universal.
Right. And I've seen my clients, even before this COVID thing, hire somebody without that industry experience because they have those personality traits over someone that has experience in that industry with that product that doesn't have the personality that it's going to take to really achieve those goals.
So in addition to the things that you've been mentioning about shifting and such, I'm curious, so many people rely on LinkedIn for a minimal amount of its features and not a whole lot of it. But what I do know is that there's a wealth of knowledge that people can gain from using that as a tool when they're looking to pivot from one industry to another, or as you said, from one role to another. What are your thoughts about LinkedIn or any other tool to make this career shift?
Yeah. Well, if you're going to change careers, you're going to need to do a tremendous amount of research on that career so that you can speak the language when you show up in front of an interview, and also to determine for yourself if that really is where you want to go. You may find out in that research that, oh, maybe that isn't what I thought it was,
Right.
So one of the best tools out there is LinkedIn. And the reason is that you can say you've identified an industry that you want to go into. You can research companies that do that and then use LinkedIn to find people that work there and are or in that industry that you're looking for. And you can reach out to connect to them to ask if they would be willing to speak with you in an informational interview, so that you can just ask them questions, and if you're impressive enough during that process with the research and questions that you ask, they will probably naturally feel compelled to help you and to recommend you within their own company or to other people that they have relationships with. So you want to have, very impressive high-level strategic questions for them. But the research can get you right to the type of people that you should connect with.
So, Marilyn, what could a person do to make themselves stand out as actually a viable candidate in a potential employer's eyes, even though they've never had experience in that industry?
Mhm. Well, we've talked about doing your research and trying to speak with people in that industry. But so now you have enough information, I think, to start putting yourself out there. So coming back to LinkedIn, for example, there are groups on LinkedIn that you can put in almost any subject and you'll find a group in that
Yes.
topic. So say you're wanting to transition into the healthcare industry because it's a more stable environment and industry. So join some of those groups. And if you don't feel yet that you have enough value to offer comments or whatever, start with asking questions. Comment on what other people post
Yep.
and ask questions, and then your name starts popping up. People look at your LinkedIn profile, see what you're all about. But just start with asking those questions, and then you'll get to a point where you feel comfortable enough offering some value on your own by commenting on things that you've researched or read, or articles, or podcasts or whatever. But then you'll start showing up in that group as kind of a topic matter expert. And a little plug for making sure that your LinkedIn profile looks really good, so that when they do click on you, that it's impressive.
Yes.
And we have people that we can recommend that can help you with your LinkedIn profile if you need that too. But just start to be seen as a topic matter expert.
As you said, joining the groups is a key. There's also a lot of Facebook groups for professional industries. And this goes along with, making sure that your personal brand is up to date, as you're saying, making sure that that LinkedIn profile is spot on as to who you are and where you're going. Cultivating those relationships is a critical part of this process. And what are your thoughts on cultivating relationships? We know it takes time, but what else?
Yeah. Well, the majority of there's a lot of research on how people find their next career or their jobs, and nothing is ever going to trump relationships. That's how most people end up where they are, is because of someone that they knew. And so it's really important to build valued relationships, particularly in that future of where you want to go. But I just want to emphasize that a relationship is like a bank account. You can't make a withdrawal until you make a deposit. So if you're perceived as someone that's just always asking, I believe in life that there are givers and there are takers. And if you're perceived as a taker, just always asking, people are, after a while, they're going to get tired. So be thinking with every conversation you have, every relationship that you have, what kind of deposit can you make to them? And I found that the best deposits that you can make are, people automatically think, well, I need to send them a gift card or something like that. No. Business professionals want ideas, information, and connections to other business professionals that will help them. So be thinking of those three I's, if you will: introductions, ideas, information that you can offer to them. Because if you've done something significant for someone, if they're any kind of human being at all, they're going to feel compelled to want to give in return. So build that bank account. And during this time of COVID is a great time to be thinking about how you can make deposits to people.
I'm curious about any examples that a person should come prepared with. So, for example, if I get this explorational interview phone call from a candidate who's seeking this, what should they have ready for me to hear about those transferable skills, or examples of product, or what should they have in their back pocket ready in that conversation, Marilyn?
Sure. Well, again, I just want to back up a little bit, that as part of the research phase, rather than just spending a ton of time online trying to research that, part of your research is actually connecting with people and asking them those questions. That is your research phase. So you're kind of doing double duty in building relationships there and doing your research. And how better to do your research than speak with somebody who lives that, walks that walk and talks that talk. So, the informational interviews are important. One of the best ways to be able to articulate that you can pivot is to be able to provide specific examples from your past or present in how you navigated through some uncharted waters when you didn't maybe know the product or the acronyms or whatever. So if you have examples, and that's always the best way to answer an interview question anyway, right, is with a specific example. So have some examples ready to show how you were able to pivot at that time when you were in uncharted waters and how you navigated through that. And I think don't be afraid to even talk about how you might have failed during that process and then how you turned that back around. Everyone's looking for humility and people who are teachable and trainable. And the fact that you're willing to be vulnerable and raw, if you will, talking about how perhaps it didn't go as planned, but then how you were able to pivot that to success.
The other day you and I were talking about seeing people's coping skills, and you're triggering me to think back to that idea about, people cope with change in various ways. And so what you're just suggesting here is have an example about when you dealt with change, unwanted, unexpected, not something that was forecasted and planned for, and talk about that example, because I think that's one of the things that employers are going to be looking for is what is your flexibility and adaptability when it is not just uncharted waters, but unexpected and unwanted. So the unfamiliarity of a situation and how you fared with it, even if, as you said, Marilyn, even if it was a failed attempt, what were the lessons learned? What would you apply to the next time that thing shows up again? So these, I think, are ways to, again, turn a conversation into a shining moment for you as a candidate.
Yeah, and I promise you get bonus points for being vulnerable.
I'm thinking that we should talk a bit about this idea of personal brand and elevator pitch, because I'm thinking of my client who's been at a company for 18 years and let go. And, I know sometimes we get this identity that's just ingrained within us, and it's very hard to break out of that identity. When somebody asks, who are you? What do you do? The typical US greeting. Who are you? What do you do? I'm curious, what could she do with her elevator pitch, if you will, to brand herself differently and see herself in the future rather than the past, when she does have to introduce herself and her reasoning for switching gears at this point?
Yeah, that's a great question that I get quite a lot. Some employers, not all, may look unfavorably at being at one place for so long. They may have this impression that you only know one thing. So it's important to help them get past that in your messaging. So you want to talk about your promotions, accomplishments, awards, achievements that you had during that time, because in 18 years, you probably were not doing the same thing for 18 years. You've probably grown and been promoted. So it's very important to be concise and have an elevator speech. People want to talk about how you've taken that experience and how you're going to apply it in the future. Authentically, what are your transferable skills and what could they expect from you in applying your experience from the past to being successful with them in the future?
Great. And working with a recruiter like yourself at the executive level, working with myself as an executive coach, We are two professionals who can help you get that elevator pitch if you are out there looking to do this pivoting for your own career advancement and for your own career advantage at this time. I am going to say a big thank you to Marilyn for sharing your expertise and all of this wisdom today. And we look forward to the next conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.